keeping strong
I
through
had
the
snow today.
chaos. You got snow today?
I did.
We did not get
I
snow
can't.
here.
I can't see you, by the way. It says that you're live, but I'm on your thing, and it's not. It says you're
Just
offline.
refresh it. It should come up.
Are we sure? Okay.
It's up on my end.
All right. Oh, okay, I see it now. All right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no snow, but I did hear we have a snowstorm coming my way. So
Well, it must be coming up from my way.
I believe so. But anyways, we are keeping strong. We're bringing another. This week was a special treat for everybody. We brought 2 episodes this week
Yeah, we had a
of all
little
the factors.
bonus. And why did we
So
have a bonus?
we had a bonus because Europe is imploding, and we just wanted to
Wah, wah.
we just wanted to see what was going on over there, and Ukraine is about to get stripped for parts very soon. Very
Yeah,
very soon.
that wasn't very
Uh,
sensitive
it's a very sensitive
for their
topic over
plight.
there. Right. But anyways, welcome to all the factors. This is week 14. We're going strong. We are very excited to join you. A couple of weeks ago, not a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, I had asked um, Annette here, which was sexier, war or taxes? Uh, and she decided to go with taxes. So we reserved that for the main episode on Thursdays.
Okay, I went
Uh,
with taxes because so I think at the time
Something about taxes just gets her going.
you're
Just
right,
just to
but at the time that you had asked that, I think so the meeting in Syria hadn't happened yet. So we
yes.
were just at Hexeth.
Saudi Arabia, you mean?
Oh yeah, sorry, Saudi Arabia. So we just had Hexeth being silly,
At
and
NATO?
JD being offensive. That's all we had.
Yes. Yes.
And a couple phone calls
And a couple
from
phone calls
Trump
between
and
Putin
yes.
and Trump. Yes.
Trump
But
did
that's
speak
not.
with Zelensky as well at that point. We're not, I mean, they haven't, gone in person, nothing past that, but we have to give credit where it's due. There was a single phone call
I'm sure that phone call was very short and
in
not
which
pleasant.
he never bothered to tell him that, he was sending Rubio and
Witkoff and the other
Witkoff
guy.
and Waltz to, I know, why
Yeah.
can't we remember his name?
I can never remember Waltz.
To Saudi
It's
Arabia.
forgettable. He's forgettable. They
He's
all
what,
are.
National Security Advisor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see why taxes would be the default for
Right,
you.
and to follow up, at the time, the House had just put forward the bill that we're going to talk about today, and
Right.
the Senate had their finished up their talks about what they were going to propose.
Right.
So
So we did war on Tuesday, and now we're moving on to the second sexy topic of taxes. Uh, so welcome to all the factors. Week 14, Trump is king, and he owns the people's house. You are joined by Nav and
Annette,
I mess it up again.
that's
Sorry.
okay. We're going to let it go this time.
Can I just say Bo? Can I just say the whole thing?
Just say it.
Do you think that'll be easier? Or am I
I
being
think
am I
we were
or,
going to
am I
try.
being misogynistic by introducing you and not giving you the opportunity to talk?
Yeah, really, I should just be doing all the introduction and really all the talking, and you
I have been accused of both of
just
those
be
already.
there.
I have been accused of those.
Of being sexist?
Yeah, of not letting you talk enough.
Well, yeah, you talk a lot.
All right, but I'm neither going to confirm or deny that. But our faithful viewer and friend from the Down Under is
Mm-hmm.
very concerned about Ukraine. She messaged me a couple of days ago talking if we were going to talk about Ukraine more
Okay.
or if we were going to mention Ukraine. So uh, we are just as concerned as her. I think Zelensky more so than anybody else. But oh, actually, I think Europe might be a little bit more concerned than Zelensky. Um, so we'll definitely keep talking about Ukraine. I think that's a developing situation, and how it develops will be a very, very, very big thing on the global stage, and how the
Yeah,
future is
I'm
going to shape
going
up
for.
to be.
I mean, I'll be interested to see what sort of response Europe comes up with.
Yeah, I was listening to NPR on the way home today, and and they were talking about the whole the breakdown of the talks between, and the further breakdown of the talks between Zelensky and Trump, and who's in there's somebody in Ankara right now that was meeting with Zelensky, and they refused to hold the press conferences um, after the talks had broken down. They were mentioning something like that, something about that, and all I could think of was, please don't start a war for the next 4 years. Can we just get through these next 4 years till we can get Trump
Right.
out, hopefully, and just not destroy the world in the next 4 years in the process.
Well,
Like, that
right,
was
because
thinking my entire thought. Like, can we
they're
just
gonna be doing all that, and then we're obviously gonna get like we're not going to not be involved in that, but he's also going to be like, I think this will be a good time to attack Canada or something stupid,
right?
like
Because Caroline, my girl Caroline, the awesome press secretary
yeah.
today, um, she was asked about the hockey game that was happening today, and then she goes, "Yeah, we're looking forward to the U.S. um,
The
beating
51st
Canada,
state.
our soon to be our our soon to be our 51st state," which
Right.
was
I mean, that's just an example of, I think, the
just
huge
what?
difference between last, um, his last, term and this time. Because, he's just, everybody around him is just, just as openly antagonistic as he is. And just, unprofessional in that kind
Yeah,
of way. So.
yeah. By the way, I sent you this thing called a knock. Um, Approve that. That way we can share our chat. So whenever somebody's talking in my chat, it will come up in the All the Factors chat, and then people will see that they can follow all the chat. That we're streaming quote unquote together. Um, should be fairly simple. You can mute me on that too because it's not necessary. Is it a whole process for you? Should we just do it another time?
Yeah, it's making me do the password.
To sign in. Yeah, this way it's easier. That way you don't have to be like in my chat to see what's like somebody saying. You know what I mean?
Oh, is it doing so
And then you can just
much?
literally just type in your chat, and it'll show up on mine too.
All right. Well, I should be almost done with it. I just have to
No, no,
put
no.
this in.
I meant to say it, yeah, last week too, or Tuesday, but I just totally forgot. Like, I totally forgot. And I realized it towards the end, and I just saw it now. So I was like, why don't we just do it now? The next time it's just a quick click and yes.
Alrighty, it's giving me a hard time about my phone number. It's
Okay,
saying it's with another account, so I'll
that's
just,
fine. We'll just
we'll do that next time.
we could do it next time. Yeah. All right. So what do you want to just mention something about the updates? What do you got? What?
Well, we didn't really give an update about exactly what's happening now with Ukraine. I don't think. We want to talk about the dictator comment.
The Trump is king? Oh, no. You mean Zelensky dictator comment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess on Tuesday, actually we actually watched the video together when Trump was taking questions from Mar-a-Lago. Can I mention something funny? I think it's funny that he hasn't traveled anywhere. Like, everybody's only come to see him. I because he's a felon and he can't fly, obviously. But I don't think that's the reason. I think it's because who's gonna really stop the president of the United States? Who's gonna
Right.
really arrest him, right? Uh, but it's just funny. I think that's just like that's like a funny haha thing that I had, a moment that I had.
I mean, sure, it is kind of odd. I mean, why aren't you going
Why?
on there?
But I think what it is, and and I when Prime Minister Modi was visiting him, um, I hated I hated that whole interview. I did not like it. I did not like it one bit. In one point, instead of calling him Mr. President or Mr. Trump or my friend Trump, he addresses him multiple times. I don't know if it was the translator doing this or if Modi actually had instructed the translator to do this, and like the translator was just doing a word to word translation for it. He goes, "Your Excellency."
Oh,
I did not like that at all. I
no,
did, I did not
absolutely
like
not.
multiple times, and if it was just like a slip up like one time, and like you can see the look on Trump's face, like you know what I mean when that gets said, he's like, "Oh yeah,
That's me.
yeah, that's right, I like that one." Um, so
Yeah,
it
that's
was
very like no, that's not.
right.
We
That's not
don't
what we do
do
here.
that.
But I think
That's not what we do.
that's why he's not traveling to other countries yet. I think he's very much doing this. Come to me to come kiss the throne, like kiss the ring. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's
That
very
would be
much
very Trumpian, yes.
it's very much him. Like come kiss the ring. Show your love to me so I can spare you. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
that's the very that and it's kind of what the feeling in Europe is right now after all the whole, especially after that interview on Tuesday where he pretty much said Ukraine started this war, and again for facts, he did not. They did not.
No,
They did not start
not
this war.
not how that works when you get invaded. And I mean, even a bunch of Republican, Congress people, after being asked about that, in the 2 days in between now and then,
Yeah.
have just been like either fumbling all over themselves, trying to say like, oh well, maybe this is what he meant,
Yeah.
or they're just straight up just like, no, I don't agree with that particular statement. Like, we
Right.
can't go around saying that,
Right.
an invaded country started this war.
Right.
Um,
How does that
and then
exactly
to
work?
follow it up with, the leader's a dictator who hasn't held an election,
Right.
so he's illegitimate, and he has like a 4% approval rating, and all this
Which
stuff
is
that
also
Trump
false.
has been saying. That's really just, you know, propagating like Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
So
Well, we can't. Yeah, it's giving her a hard time, but we will for the next time, Rakim. Uh, so we will do that. You're locked in. I
well,
appreciate you.
I do see her because
Yeah,
I've
she's
watched
in my chat.
I watched that
Yeah.
chat. But yeah,
But for next time we'll have a shared chat. So
it's
we'll
just
be in
because
there.
he doesn't want to just go in on all the on the all the factors channel. Just
I listen.
doesn't want to
I
give up his own popularity over here.
There's literally I've said it before. I'm just like I've explained this to you, brother. What do you mean? I've explained what the issue is. I would love for it to be just like you stream and we're both there on Riverside, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not streaming anything on my side. I would love that. It would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or I just stream it, and then you're just on the Riverside, and you don't have to stream anything. That'd be just fine with me. Um, it's less work for me, but you know how complicated that process is. Anyways, we're having a serious discussion about an invaded country, bro. Um,
Right, back to that.
yeah. So I just where were we? I don't even know. Oh yeah, Trump said it's Ukraine's fault. It's certainly not. So I think after that, Zelensky was asked, "Hey, Trump is saying this," and all the talking points that Trump is saying right now, um, you know, they're very pro-Russian. They're only helping Russia even more.
Absolutely. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious that we've abandoned Ukraine as their
Yeah.
ally.
Yeah, that's why I said they're getting stripped for parts. That Trump is taking the minerals, and we're just gonna throw Russia away like a cheap whore. You know what I mean? Like it's just what's gonna happen with Russia. So
I thought
I mean
that
with Ukraine.
that TikTok that you sent me earlier about how like with all of the mineral talk and of this his clear favoritism for Russia, how
Yes,
we can't be like an impartial party, or the
yes.
United States can't, to
Like
negotiate this
how
between Ukraine and Russia. I thought that was an interesting point.
like the how that's why Zelensky's showing a little bit of a backbone to Trump and then having like baiting Trump into this. I thought that was interesting too. I don't know exactly how true that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't really fully convince myself of it, but I did
I
think it was
think
an interesting point.
I think the only way I would convince I think the only way this could be a convincing strategy is if Zelensky has the support of Congress, who will fund another Ukraine package, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that is the case, if there's some sort of indication that Congress will continue to back Ukraine without the approval of Trump, which is very unlikely, I don't think that will be the case at all. Um, that I could get behind that strategy a little bit more.
Yeah, but yeah, I
Uh,
mean, did you see Ezra Klein call congressional Republicans NPCs?
I saw. No, I don't think it was. Was it Ezra Klein that I watched? I had recently I saw something about NPCs. Um, because there's a meme, right? Like I think Elon has been using a meme uh regarding that. I don't know if it was Ezra Klein, but I did see something about that. But tell me more. Why is it NPCs?
Well, because I mean, so that's something that the right has kind of tried to say about us or the left,
Yes.
especially throughout the
Like we're non-thinking, right?
right. We're not thinking. We just say what we're told, do what we're told. I
Right.
mean, the justification for that they're using for that is like keeping things like PC,
Yeah.
wokeness, all that sort of stuff. That we're just like saying everything, anything, doing whatever we can to make sure we don't, we follow the
Offend
rules, we
anybody.
don't
Yeah,
offend
yeah.
anyone, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, so in Ezra Klein's piece, he kind of flipped it and said like okay, maybe we do have a slight problem with that on the left,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's like
I do agree with that.
actually like so pervasive that it's like causing such a problem. But what is causing a problem is that um, these like the congressional Republicans or the GOP who
Yeah.
are actually supposed to be a co-equal branch, or you know the most powerful arguably of the three branches, because
Yes.
that's we have it in our title, the people's house. They're supposed to represent the people.
Yes.
So their job, I mean, and historically we've never had um, one party just bow down to a president in
Yes.
this country to this extent.
Yes.
The parties, he kind of in his piece, he kind of explained how like historically the parties haven't been so homogenous in general.
Mhm.
Like a Republican 40 years ago wasn't just like this is I'm a Republican, so this is exactly what I believe. There was a huge spectrum, and our spectrum has gotten much smaller.
Yeah.
Same thing on the left, but basically he's saying that since they're so, they're in basically such subjugation to Trump because of factors like we talked about, how if Elon's going to, fund their
Primaries.
competition for them in their next
Yeah.
primary,
Yeah.
then they feel like they have to do that.
Yeah.
So basically, they don't think, they don't challenge, they don't put up ideas of their own. They
Yeah.
just do whatever it takes to get Trump's wants on the board. I mean, eventually that's going to segue well into what we're going to talk about today with the budget,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No,
I thought that was pretty interesting.
and and it is interesting. I do see where Ezra Klein is coming from, but you know what? as we talk about this, and I don't, there's a very easy solution to that problem. Like somebody in the GOP has to be recognizing that, right? Like they have to be recognizing, like, well, this guy literally just openly threatened us, right? Like that if you don't support what he's saying, or if you don't support what he's
Mhm.
what he's doing, um, he's just gonna what, like get rid of us, quote unquote. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they can't be that much like cut out. You know what I mean? Like, it just like they got to be seeing that as a threat, and then somebody's got to be looking at that. And I feel like if I have the power in Congress of both houses and the judiciary, I think the
Mhm.
only thing I think that giving Elon this much power is the popularity of Trump, of course. You know, I would just make it like they. If I was them, I would literally be like, I'm gonna banish this guy into oblivion. Like, what the fuck is this dude thinking about, right? But I think the popularity of Trump is stopping this to a certain extent.
Mhm.
I think they have to be thinking of a way to get rid of Elon. Like, they have to be, right?
I
Like,
think in general, I mean, they could pass a bill saying that you can't, you can't fund like limiting donations or something like
but they won't though,
limiting Elon's power to financially support an entire
right?
campaign.
But it
I
would
mean,
harm them too.
well, right, because of their other
Because
donors.
they don't have like normal average day Americans. They're not appealed by any of those policies, except for like a few, like, oh, shut down the border. You know what I mean? Like
No,
get these illegals
I
out,
would
right?
agree with that. I think a lot of people don't like all the money in politics.
Oh no, no,
I think even your average
certainly.
person would think that would is not understands that we're being manipulated to an extent by
I
all
think
of the money
majority
in
do.
politics.
Yeah,
Um, and I think a bill like that would be popular, but like you said, they won't go that way because then they're putting all of their other money at risk and all the personal money that it's like how it's almost, I don't know, my brain goes to like when one fringe, I guess, Republican puts forward a no, Congress members can't trade stocks bill or something like that.
yeah,
It's like it's a good idea, everybody likes it, but they're not gonna
yeah.
actually do that.
No, what I and I was kind of saying the exact same thing. I think is like, well, like they don't have any substantial policies that they can win on, right? So they have to resort to so they can't fundraise. If you can't appeal to me as a normal voter, right? Like then I'm not gonna fundraise. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give you any money. So the anybody in Oklahoma running for a Republican Party is like, well, I want to. Abortion is categorically like very unpopular
Mm-hmm.
amongst majority of like people, like the you know what I mean. So the anti-abortion, I mean, the
Right.
bills, like they do see that as like an infringement on women's right. Like most people do see that, right?
Yeah.
Uh, they might not be themselves okay with it to a certain extent, but like when it comes to be like, oh well, like the government shouldn't be in it. Like they understand that concept, right? So
Yeah.
and Republicans really don't have any other policies that I've ever seen them put forward, except for the very few very racist ones. So they can't fundraise on those policies, right? So the reason why they won't like put a bill in exactly kind of what you said is like they won't put a bill forward where it would limit billionaire interference in our election is because it harms them a lot more it does the Democrats, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's true. I
Democrats have
mean,
some
they're
sort of
not really
substantial
seeing.
policies that they can
Yeah.
raise money on.
I mean,
Republicans don't.
that's the risk of being, forever the opposition. Like,
Right.
or even considering yourself the opposition when you literally hold the entire government. Like,
Right. So I think, but if I'm in the Republican Party right now and I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking of a way to get rid of Elon because that's just like an axe being held over your neck, and I think that's
mhm.
why Doge is so strong, and that's why everything that's gonna happen in this budget resolution um, is its hands are all like you could see like Doge's grubby little hands in it,
Mhm.
for sure. So and I think
I
one
mean,
of the
that just
bills,
ties their hands then, right? Because
yeah,
they can't
yeah,
really do anything about it, and they have to sit here and say that everything that Doge is doing is a good thing.
Yes.
otherwise. They're at the
I,
same
I
price.
really don't think they believe it either.
No, they don't.
I
They
don't think, because
absolutely
I
don't.
think there was a reporter asking
I
Lisa
mean, we talked about
Murkowski.
that a few times. I'm sorry to interrupt. A few times
No.
ago, that's literally them saying like, "Oh yeah, let's roll back everything that we approved, everything we did as in our jobs, and just say it was all fraud." Like
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you were saying Lisa Murkowski?
Yeah, somebody asked Lisa Murkowski, a reporter, like, well, what do you think about all these Doge cuts? And she goes like, well, it's hammering my district, or it's hammering
Mm-hmm.
my state. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're feeling it. And I was watching a skit on TikTok of this guy, and then he was going like, like once all these cuts are happening more and more often, um, the red states are going to feel this a lot more. And I'm going to use Connecticut as an example. Um, Connecticut is very fiscally strong this year, and it will continue to be. We have a massive budget surplus. The the Connecticut legislature right now is sending me surveys, you know, talking about where should the government spend their money, right? Like, there's very few
Hey, that's a nice
states that
problem to
have that
have.
problem. You know what I mean? Right. That's right. That's a good problem to have. Talking about like, well, should we continue saving money, or should we start spending some of this $2 billion surplus that we have, right? That's I guarantee you, there's not a single red state right now that has that problem. So
We're
once
still
these
looking for our 1.8 billion, by the way.
there, there you go. That's just magically disappeared.
Yep.
Right. So when we're talking about these cuts, and then Lisa Murkowski is talking about it's hurting my state, it's gonna hurt these red states a
It is.
lot more than it's gonna hurt the blue states, because they're very California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont. Like, they're industry states that bring in so much revenue
Yeah.
that excess amount of revenue. It's strong industry here. What the fuck is happening in Alabama? What is happening in Oklahoma? Nothing. Nothing is
Just
happening in
people.
Oklahoma.
Yeah. I mean,
It-
right. I mean, they have the largest amount of people
Kentucky.
receiving Medicaid and food stamps and
Exactly.
things like
And
that.
those are the
So,
people that want to get rid of it. So I guess, you know what? Go for it.
yeah. No, because it's not. It doesn't really equal out. There's people of all sort of demographics, and
Yes,
police who
yes,
are going to get
yes.
hurt. So
I I'm there with you. I'm just saying only in GTA. Um, go for it in GTA. But you know what? Like, again, like, you can wish for it like that. We don't want this to happen, but it's happening.
right.
It's happening, and and this is the perfect segue into
It
the
really
budget.
is.
This is the part. Okay, so do you want to do the 17-minute video of how taxes work? Do you want to do that, or you don't want to do that? We could watch it on 2 times speed.
Sure. So what's this video again? So this is just telling us like basic like civics information. Is that what you're saying?
It's about what Trump has proposed.
Oh, okay.
So
this
it's
is just-
explaining what Trump is going to. It's a little bit of a civic thing in the beginning, like how the government takes, taxes for people that might not know. Um,
yeah,
uh,
let's do it. Let's look in
I
depth
can make
into
it like
taxes.
1 times the speed. Playback. Right. I can make it 1.25, so it's a little bit less than 17.
All right.
17 screen. Where am I at? There you go. Share. All right.
To use tariffs to reduce or potentially eliminate the President Trump just outlined his tax plans for 2026, and not surprisingly, he wants to make some big changes. On one hand, Trump says that he wants to use tariffs to reduce or potentially eliminate the income tax. By the way, I already made a whole video explaining that. If you want to watch it, I'll link it for you down in the description. And then on the other hand, he wants to reform the tax code by offering big tax breaks. Now, as a licensed attorney who's not your attorney, I spent some time studying the Trump tax proposals, and from what I gathered, it looks like there are three main things that he wants to do. Number one, he wants to eliminate certain tax categories.
So it's not yeah, what's up, Kara? So it's not it's not just a random guy. Like he actually knows what he's talking about. It's a licensed attorney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
For example, he talks about eliminating the tax you pay on Social Security benefits. Number two, he wants to extend certain tax cuts, which are set to expire in the end of 2025. And number three,
I do like that. I do like that a lot. Like to not tax Social Security benefits. I'm okay with that.
third E,
Yeah.
encourage businesses to
I
make
mean,
it
we're not.
in
I
America.
mean, I didn't. So this isn't just. I guess just to be clear, this isn't talking about what's going to be extended based
No, no,
on
no.
the budgets that they're talking about today.
No, this is what he's called for. This is not
In the
what's in the
future.
resolution at all. Yeah, yeah. This is what he wants. This is, but I think that
Well,
the
this-
reason I
I'm
want to
just
do
saying
this.
this isn't what his current tax plan covers.
Right,
So
right.
basically, part of the bills, or the bills will be to extend the 2017 tax cuts. This
Right.
is something that he's working on in the future. Okay,
Right.
this is kind of interesting that that's in there, because part of the criticism for that we've been looking at for the House and Senate bills are that the Social Security tax cuts aren't in it, and he
Yeah.
campaigned on that. So that is interesting. Well, I guess
No.
I guess screw us for that criticism, right?
No, but I think it might be a fair criticism a little bit too. Is this is what he wants, but what we have proposed, this is nowhere in it. This is nowhere in it, right? So they
Oh, right.
what is this weight that's going on? So I think that's another thing um that's another thing that's having the issue with the Senate and the GOP. I mean the House. They're both divided in terms of what they want to get passed. But since they have both of the houses and they have the House, they can get this all done. I mean, they have the White House. They can get all this done in one fell swoop. What's the reason about why Lindsey Graham wants to do a quick one? Get a quickie out the way first before he
because-
gets a really orgy going.
It's because the House isn't the House. It's not a guarantee, because all of those Republicans aren't one and the same. I mean, there's some that are in more moderate districts who voting for this, especially if there's major impacts.
It's political
to
suicide.
Exactly, especially if it's to Medicaid and food stamps, those cuts. And then there's, on the opposite spectrum, there's Republicans who think that this budget even the House budget isn't going far enough, because it doesn't
Yeah.
quite fully cover the Trump tax cuts. There's
Right.
like we're talking a couple $1 billion that it doesn't cover for like all of Trump's priorities. So it's just kind of, and the majority is so slim that they can only sacrifice one vote.
Yeah. So exactly. But I think it's just I think it just goes to show you, like, even though they have all these things lined up for them, they have a lot of major hurdles to get through. And I think what's end up going to happening is all the things that Americans want from Trump and Trump has proposed, like no taxes on Social Security, they're not going to go through. I think, again, this is my prediction. This is what's going to happen. What will end up probably going through is like an increase in defense budget, tax cuts for the rich, and a border. I think those things will probably end up going to go through, because I think majority of the Republicans are on board with that. You know what I mean? So
Well, right. That's why the Senate is doing something different. I mean, because they also think that those things are more likely to go through.
Right. All right. Let's keep going.
Giving them tax incentives. So let's break this down not from a political perspective, but from a financial perspective. That way you get a better understanding of what could potentially be coming in 2026 and beyond. Now, a quick refresher so we're on the same page. The United States government is not a for-profit entity. They collect taxes.
Say that for the people in the back. It's not for profit. It's not for profit.
I don't know if they know that.
Here you go. It's not for profit. The government is not for profit. The government does not make money. It just spends money.
from taxpayers. So you pay taxes to the government. I'll explain how you're paying taxes in just a minute. And then the government is going to go out and spend these tax dollars that you give and then some through the help of debt. Because right now the United States government is deeply in debt and they spend money on things like the military and healthcare and apparently some very expensive.
Read that real quick. Where's Doge? We need Doge. Elon, President Trump, please come pray with me.
Not a good look.
Come pray with me. President Trump, please send Elon Musk. Please.
Okay, I'll let you have your moment, and then we'll move on.
At $8,000 markup.
Of coffee cups. Now, there's a handful of different ways that the government collects taxes from you. I shared this in a video recently, but I think it'll be helpful if I share it again because I'm talking about taxes in this video. Here are a few categories of taxes that you might be paying. Number one are income taxes. You go to work and get paid, you pay income taxes before you even get that money. Number two are payroll taxes. When you work a salary, you pay payroll taxes, which are your FICA taxes, and then your employer also pays FICA taxes on the salary that they pay you. Number three are capital gains taxes. If you buy a stock and you sell it for a profit, that's a capital gains tax on your investment profits. Number four are corporate taxes. So if you run a big corporation called a C corporation and the corporation makes a profit, the corporation has to pay taxes on that profit in addition to when the owners get the money distributed to them. It's called a double tax. I'll explain more about that in just a little bit. Number five are property taxes. You buy a house, well, you have to pay property taxes every single year. Number six are estate taxes. These are also known as death taxes. If you die and you pass down a lot of wealth to your kids or really anybody, you have to now worry about these death taxes. Now, if you're only passing down $1 or $2 million, you don't have to worry about it. This is for people that are passing down more than $14 million at the time I'm recording this video. Number seven are sales taxes. You go to the grocery store, buy something, you got to pay a tax. Number eight are sin taxes. You buy cigarettes, you buy lottery. Those are considered sin taxes. The government doesn't like them, so they tax it. Number nine are tariffs. You know, we've been talking about this more and more recently, but if you import something from a foreign country that has a tariff, well, now the person that's buying that product has to also pay that tax, which is called the tariff tax, and then all the other taxes, which are just lumped into other. For example, you might have heard of some airport taxes or some hotel taxes. These are all those other taxes. This year, President Trump is proposing to eliminate certain taxes or extend certain tax breaks or to encourage businesses to make in America by incentivizing them through tax cuts as a way to simplify some of these taxes. Now you might be wondering, well, right now we have all of these different taxes right here. If we're collecting less taxes, how is the government going to pay all their bills? And either the government can shrink how much money they spend by reducing their expenses, or they can hope that the tax cuts will allow for growth in the economy, and the growth in the economy could also potentially increase the tax revenue. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. I want to go over the tax proposals, so let's go over that. Let's just go in order down the list because you'll see that there's a lot of changes happening. And this is actually one of the reasons why on March 11th, I'm hosting a free live and virtual wealth building workshop where I'm going to be going over how you can find the investment opportunities and things like Doge and all the monetary policy changes that we're seeing now in this changing economy, because a lot of things are changing faster than what a lot of people even thought. And so in this workshop, I'm going to be going over some of these changes, including technology and AI, and how these can create a unique investment opportunity. It's a completely free workshop. I'm hosting it twice on March 11th, one at 10:30 a.m.
Plug it out, dog.
And then again at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's completely free. So if you're an investor and you want to see how you can find and stay on top of these new investment opportunities, I got the link for you to join down in the description below. Just make sure you register and save your spot because there's a limited number of people that can actually join me live. Three of the biggest proposals that Trump has made when it comes to eliminating taxes are: number one, eliminating taxes on tips. Number two, eliminating taxes on Social Security benefits. And number three, eliminating taxes on overtime income. These are all different types of income taxes, which, if you remember, income taxes are just number one. And so what President Trump is proposing is that he wants to reduce the income tax on certain people by eliminating certain types of taxes. The one some people find the most interesting is the tax on Social Security income, because it's a tax that you're paying on money that you already pay taxes on. Because you're going to work right now and you get paid that salary, well, you're paying the Social Security tax. It's a part of your payroll taxes. So you're paying the Social Security tax. And then when you go and enter retirement, you finally get that money from the government. And then the government's going to tax you on the money that they're paying you. So it's really a Social Security income tax, because now as you generate that Social Security income, you have to pay that tax. And this is where President Trump is saying, well, how about we just remove that tax? Because if you're relying on Social Security, you have a fixed income, this will give you more spending power when you are in retirement if you don't have to pay taxes on the Social Security. Another interesting one has to do with overtime, because what President Trump is saying is if you're working overtime, you are one of the hardest working Americans out there. And if you're one of the hardest working Americans and you're working these extra hours, you should be able to keep more of the income for yourself. Now, again, all of this is just a proposal. We don't know what's going to happen just yet. I'll be keeping you posted here and in my free newsletter, Market Briefs. So let's see what's going on with that. Number two is President Trump has talked about extending certain tax cuts. In 2017, when Trump was president during his first term,
today's actually a really exciting day because we got to unfold.
Is it? I don't care.
One of these units.
He passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and that tax cut is set to expire in the end of 2025 unless something changes. And this is where Trump says he wants to extend that. The best way for me to explain what that means is just to show you. This is what our 2025 income tax brackets look like. And yes, I have rounded all of these numbers to keep it simple. And these are marginal tax brackets, which means on the first $11,900 of your income, you're going to pay 10% of the money in taxes. For every dollar that you earn, more than $11,900 to $48,400, you're going to pay 12% of that in taxes. Between $48,400 and $103,000, you're going to pay 22% of that in taxes. For every dollar that you earn, between $103,000 and $197,000, you're going to pay 24% of the money in taxes. For every dollar that you earn, between $197,000 and $250,000, you're going to pay 32% of that in taxes. For every dollar that you earn between $250,000 and $626,000, it's 35%. And then for every dollar that you earn more than $626,000, you're going to pay 37% of that money in taxes. Again, this is for a single tax filer. And when I say marginal tax bracket, what that means now is if I make $100,000 a year as a single tax filer, the first $11,900 are going to be taxed at 10%. Then for every dollar between $11,900 and $48,400, I'm going to pay 12% of that money in taxes. And then for every dollar that I earn between $48,400 and $100,000 a year, I'm going to pay 22% of the money in taxes. So just because I make more than this doesn't mean that all of my income gets taxed at 22%. It's marginal, which means for every dollar that I earn in this bracket, I pay that much money in taxes. For every dollar that I earn in this bracket, that's how much money I pay in taxes. So this is the 2025 tax rates that are a byproduct of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed in 2017. So the question is, if these tax cuts don't get extended, what would happen to tax rates? I'll show you. This is what would happen. If you make over $11,900, your tax rates are going to go up. The marginal tax bracket rates would go up in almost all brackets except the lowest tax bracket and then this tax bracket right here where it would stay at 35%. So this would go from 12% to 15%, 22% to 25%, 24% to 28%, 32% to 33%, 35% would stay the same right here. And then this would go from 37% to 39.6%. So again, whether you're making $30,000 a year or $6 million a year, you would be impacted because for every dollar that you earn between $11,900 and $48,400, you'd be paying 15% as opposed to 12%. Now, the other thing that I want to let you know is this dollar amount changes every year with inflation. So you don't have to worry too much about this. We'll see what this is in 2026 as we get closer to 2026. But what we know is that this tax percentage is what would go up if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act does not get extended. But this is where Trump says that he wants to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that way these tax rates don't go back up. Now that we've covered how Trump wants to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, let's talk about how Trump wants to encourage businesses to make their products in America. This is kind of a two-pronged approach. I'm going to call it the punish and reward approach, which is if you make your products not in America, you're going to be punished. But if you make your products in America, you're going to be rewarded. What do I mean? If you make your products in a foreign country, you might be subject to a tariff tax. This tariff tax means that if you're a business manufacturing things in China, you might have to pay an additional tax now to produce that product, which means it's going to be more expensive for you to produce that product, which means that now you might have to either A, eat up that cost and shrink your profit margins, or B, pass that cost on to your consumers. Now, if a different business produces that same product in America, well, they would have to pay more cost because the labor cost in America is higher than China. And this is what Trump is saying is he's going to reward you by producing the product in America through tax cuts by producing that product in America. What that looks like to me as a random guy on YouTube is giving businesses who produce products in America a better chance to be able to compete against businesses who produce their products in a foreign country by offering them, number one, the ability to not pay the tariff tax, and then the ability to save money on taxes. That way you can compete a little bit easier on price, which would essentially, in theory, encourage people to buy more products.
But they won't. But they won't. They're just going to take the tax cut and not pass it on. That's the problem.
I thought you were getting a little fiscal conservative.
In America. Will it work? Only time will tell. But let me show you.
No, but he says in theory. Like, realistically, in theory, that's how it should work, right? Like, oh,
Right.
if I'm getting taxed less, then I'm not going to charge as much. But they won't.
Angel side of how this actually plays out. Let's assume that Mr. and Mrs. Stick Figure right here own this business right here. By the way, in my native language, Punjabi, a mustache is called a much, a braid is called a gut. You own this business and this business sells guacamole. We're going to ignore importing guacamole costs and tariffs for the purposes of this, but you have this business that you're selling guacamole. Let's say your business does $1 million a year in revenue. And I forgot to mention this a little bit earlier. I'm going to assume that you are a C corporation. That's just a legal term for the type of entity that you are. This is what most big businesses are. They are these C corporations. So you make $1 million a year. And let's assume for the purposes of this example that you have $500,000 a year in expenses. These are your salary costs, your avocado costs, your marketing costs, and everything else. That means that your business has $500,000 of profits. Well, if you make $500,000 of profits, now your business has to pay a tax. And then you, if you were to pull some of this money out for yourself out of the business bank account into your own personal bank account to spend it on, say, a vacation, you have to pay taxes on it again. So the question is, well, what is this business tax? Well, prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, this was a 35% tax. Through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, this fell down to 21%. So right now, at the time of me recording this video, it's at 21%. Now, we know that Trump wants to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but what he also wants to do is if you make your products in America, he wants to give you an additional tax break. Instead of paying 21%, now instead, you would pay 15% in taxes as the business owner. So now, assuming that I'm making all my products in America, I would pay this 15% tax on the $500,000 in the business, which is $75,000, which means my business would be left with $425,000 after taxes. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, stick figure of this business, want to pull some money out. Let's say that they want to buy a nice house, they want to buy a car. Well, now, if they pull out, let's say $200,000 to put into their bank accounts, they have to pay taxes again because now they have an income. Now they have to pay their own income tax on this. This is why it's called a double taxation. The corporation has to pay tax, and then the individuals have to pay taxes when they receive that money. Now, I know that was a hefty tax lesson, but the main point that I want you to understand that has to do with Trump's tax proposals is that the current corporate tax rate is 21%. He wants to extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which would keep the corporate tax rate at 21%, so it does not go up to 35%. But he wants to make an amendment which says that if you own a business that makes your products in America, instead of 21%, you pay 15%, while the businesses that are producing products overseas still have to pay 21% as a reward to make your product in America, a tax incentive to make your product in America.
Thoughts so far?
I mean, I didn't know this, so I'm just kind of
Learning? I didn't know this either. This is my first time hearing this.
right. So
And then if you make a product in a foreign country, you also have to pay a tariff on top of that. So now that you understand how Trump wants to eliminate certain taxes, extend certain tax breaks, and then encourage businesses to make in America, I want to talk about one more thing, which is the risk and the cost of this. Remember, governments are not in the business of making
that. So yeah, I guess my only thought really was like, I mean, all I just see it is just continuing to add to the deficit, right? And
Yes.
like, and then they're gonna cut more.
Because he's not talking about the other side of the pie.
Right. They're going to cut more from services, which would go to the money that would go to the states, and then states are going to raise their taxes, are they not?
Like I don't necessarily agree with, I mean disagree with that, right? Like if you're making product in America, if you're manufacturing in America, that means you're obviously having jobs in America. Should you have some sort of benefit for it? Okay.
I mean, it sounds good in theory.
In theory, right?
Like,
but for like I think so.
I have like a lot of skepticism in my brain that I can't articulate.
But right, no. I think where that is, and that sounds great if somebody is making $500,000, right? Like that sounds
That's
great.
What it always is, right? It's
sure.
It's
right
for the wealthy, but like people, like I guess in our like positions, it's like it's just kind of getting whammied.
But it's so that 500 like what? Let me go back to where I was. Clear image. I want to go back. Right? Like okay, so. What is 21%? I just want to throw the number out there. Let's see. So $500,000, right? So 21%. That's 105. Mm-hmm. If the tax rate was 21%, if that's what they had to pay, they would pay 105 compared to $75,000. That's a $25,000 difference. Now, if somebody's making $500,000, they're not really like, yeah, it's nice that you got an extra $25,000, $30,000, but you weren't gonna die, right? And now we're only talking about $500,000. Now, when you multiply that in the billions, even you don't even have to go that far. You don't have to. At the upper, if somebody it just doubled, right? Like it just instantly doubled. If you just made $1 million instead of saving what $75,000, you saved $125,000. Now you just do that 2 times. That's $250,000. You do that 3. You know what I mean? That's just we're only in the 2 million we're talking about. Right. That's $250,000 you saved.
Hugely beneficial to the wealthy, not
Exactly.
beneficial to
Exactly.
middle class and below, and then whatever the consequences to the middle class or to everyone will hit the middle class and below.
And it's not really, because again, think about it, right? Like if I make $100,000, how much money this is perfect. If I'm making $100,000, and it shouldn't be contingent upon on whether I'm making a product in America. If you really want to fix the middle class, quote unquote, then you give this benefit. Oh, the middle class, anybody making less than $200,000, their taxes should go down to 15% instead of 21%.
Mm-hmm.
$200,000, that's still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. Somebody's making, again, to the point where somebody is making $500,000. Edu, really, is he though? Is he really saving America? I don't know. I don't know if he is. But if you're making $500,000, a $75,000 is not gonna make you. It's nice to have, but it's not insane, right? But if you're making $100,000, $50,000, $60,000, $200,000, that little bit of extra money does make it for you.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge. And the savings only get exacerbated. Like as you go lower down the money bracket, the savings get lesser and lesser and lesser for you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you move up the tax bracket, when you're in the upper 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 10 million, 100 million, imagine at $100 million. The amount of money you're saving is astronomical. Astronomical. And you're not passing down those savings to the customers. You're not.
No,
You're
it's not
you're
going
you're doing
anywhere.
you're doing
That's
you're doing
another thing,
fucking
in
buyback.
theory, that's what Coolio would think they would do, but
You're doing stock buybacks. You're giving bonuses
Mhm.
to your CEOs. A
Right.
company like United Healthcare that made $32 billion in profit. $32 billion in profit.
And
If
then
they're,
decided
if
to
they're
use an AI to deny 80% of claims.
right, if their percentage even changes 1% of tax saving, that's an insane amount of money. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. Right? Okay, I think this is enough. We don't really need to go into like the risks and the what of that. I think I
Okay,
wanted
so
to get to that point though, like
interesting thing to look forward to.
right, like but that it will happen. He will get that pass. He got it passed the first time. He's gonna get it passed this time. And I think people need to recognize like that him passing that, it's not gonna help you. It's not gonna help you. It's gonna help you like it's a very small amount you're gonna save, whereas a corporations like Elon and Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft and Google and Marian Adelson, like all these people, they're gonna save hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, which is only gonna increase their wealth. That's one point, right? Now, that's the tax revenue generation we're talking about, which we're going to lower the cost. We're going to make it so we're not generating as much revenue in taxes. What about the other side? Because again, like at the beginning, we've just talked about it, right? The United States government, or realistically any government, is not a for-profit entity. It's not a
Right.
for-profit entity, so they spend money. If you're emptying your bank account because you're not making as much money, the opposite has to happen on the other side, right? Then benefits that the government provides, aka Medicare, Social Security, defense budgets, infrastructure, HSS, healthcare, any of those. Just think of any of the fire department, education. Like think of any of those things. Those also have to go down, which directly impact the average person. Clean air, clean water, clean food, safety protocols, FFA. Like there's literally just 2 days ago, there's been two crashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those get impacted because you've lowered it. Do you think Elon Musk? I mean, he might just come out with his own airline, just to get the benefits of all just
I mean,
all of this. I
I
would
wouldn't
not be
put it past
surprised.
him, right?
Would not be surprised, right? And now we're gonna talk about what's in the budget. Do you want to do this PBS hour, their blueprint budget, or do you want to talk about what you've posted?
Well, let's pull it up. If you want to pull up the visual, we can just go over it, and then we can watch this if you want. It's fine.
Okay, it's a 5 minute long video for the PBS hour. Okay, you want me to share it with you, or do you have your own?
No, I can see it. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. So go ahead. I don't know much about this. Why don't you tell me what's the
You want me
energy
to?
commerce, energy and
Okay, sure. Well, so right now, just to be clear, this is so we're looking right now at the proposed House bill. So they're different. So as kind of what we said at the top, so the House and the Senate both put forward bills right now. The Senate is voting on theirs now. There's not a date yet to vote on the House's. Essentially, the difference is, we kind of touched on it a little bit. The House is trying to do Trump's big, beautiful bill. What he wants, they want to put everything forward into one bill, all of Trump's legislative priorities. Whereas the Senate is looking to just look at basically the border and anything that has to do with that, because they see it as just easier to pass. So what we're looking at, so energy and commerce, we're looking to reduce that budget by $880 billion. Energy and commerce, that's where Medicaid would come from. Last year, the budget for Medicaid just itself was $680 billion or something like that. So it's the only thing in that sector large enough that
Right.
could even has that amount to give up. So to say, I mean, right before, I think the day before Trump endorsed this plan, because he wants all of his priorities in one bill. Obviously, that's what he's been talking about. He doesn't like the Senate's idea of let's split it into different things.
Yeah.
So literally the day before that, he tweeted that he endorsed this bill. He said, like, oh, we're not going to touch Medicaid. I love Medicaid. I love Medicare. We're not going to touch it. And then literally the very next day, he's like, go forward with this bill. So
Yeah.
it's just disingenuous. But yeah, so that's, that's where Medicaid would come from. Education and workforce, they're looking to cut by $330 billion. A plan for that I saw. Obviously that covers any workforce, like bolstering like programs out there. Like I have a friend who works for like basically an agency that helps with getting people like the proper training they need to just enter the workforce. So there would be cuts to programs like that. Education is kind of self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
But something that I did want to mention was that I did see just an idea floated where they would basically make it very expensive to go to college now, so student loans would get more expensive. So I mean, that kind of would do two things. A, we're trying to build ourselves off the back of 18-year-olds, and it would reduce the amount of people who can go to college in general, because some people won't be able to afford those.
Right.
Agriculture, that's where food stamps would come in. And I think the other ones are really sort of self-explanatory. But we'll
Oversight.
come down to where they're trying to, where they're going to put the money. So the Homeland, Armed Services, Judiciary, that's all going towards immigration, the wall, the border.
What's the
ICE.
Ways and Means?
So Ways and Means, that's the taxes. That's why it's 4.5 trillion. That's the Trump tax cuts.
What could you possibly cut in any of those to get to 4.5 trillion?
Well, that's it, right? It doesn't quite add up, but that's why they're increasing the debt.
By a fucking insane amount.
Yeah. So 4 trillion debt limit. $4.5 trillion tax cut. I mean, if you
Yeah.
want to, we can watch the video. They can probably, your video, they can probably explain it a little bit better than I can. But then if we want to switch to the MSNBC video,
Yeah.
watch the end of that.
Is that a good
that'll
one?
kind of explain the,
Okay.
it'll show like what kind of deficit we're kind of going to be looking at.
Okay. All right.
So
Let's watch the.
go to yours.
Yeah. It's a 5-minute quick video.
Released their long-promised budget outline as they seek to fulfill President Trump's agenda while cutting both the deficit and taxes. But it remains unclear whether the plan will achieve those goals or if it even has the vote. Congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins is here with the latest. Good to see you, Lisa. We'll get into the details in a moment, but just a quick reminder, why does all this matter?
Right. What Republicans do or don't do will affect nearly every American taxpayer. It will also determine for potentially a decade who the winners or losers are in this economy. Corporations, what happens to them? What about the poor? And it will also tell us, is Congress ever going to be serious about bringing down the deficit? All of that is at stake here.
High stakes. Okay, so now to the proposal. Just walk us through it. There's been a lot of buildup and debate. What exactly are House Republicans proposing?
All right, we've got some numbers, so I'm putting my glasses here. But first of all, I want to say this hasn't been easy, but Republicans finally cobbled this together today. It is a framework. It is a sweeping plan. To start, this is what they say they want to do as their outline.
Can I just say this picture of Mike Johnson makes him look like he just farted and he's waiting for everybody to smell it. Like he's just waiting for it. Like he just let one rip silently and he's like, just wait till you get the whiff of this one.
Maybe. I think he just looks like an excited 2-year-old with his
Like he finally got his toy. Like that he's been waiting for all his life.
Like why are you holding the gavel like that? It's like, ooh, look what I got. Like it's so weird.
He's showing it off to the other kids in the park like, yeah, I got it, you don't, fuckers. Yeah.
For tax cuts, $4.5 trillion worth of tax cuts over 10 years. Spending cuts somewhere between $1.5 and $2 trillion. For the border and for ICE detention and deportations, $300 billion. That would be in effect almost immediately. Now, all of this, you put that together, Amna, and it would end up increasing the deficit by most estimates of $3 trillion. Republicans, there's an asterisk there, dispute that because they say the economy will make up for that. We're going to get into all that context, I think, as we get down the road. But
we're just supposed to take that on faith, I guess.
Right. Like, hey, just believe me, dog. Believe me, I said it. Trump said it. The economy will make up for this.
If we say an extra special prayer, then
hey, they have concept of savings. You know what I mean? It's
concepts of a plan, concepts
of savings.
Key part here is that Republicans are doing major tax cuts and also major spending cuts. One of the programs that would be most on the chopping block potentially for spending cuts is Medicaid. Now, that is the 72 million person program in the United States. Republicans say it's full of waste and fraud, that they want more work requirements. Democrats say no, but Speaker Johnson says even if that's controversial, it's a good start. He put out this statement saying today that he remains focused on working through the process to deliver on promises made to the American people. There's still much work to be done, but we're starting on the right path. Now, that's to say also this agreement isn't entirely cemented. At the same time, Democrats are pushing back against this plan. They're saying it would hurt working and middle-class Americans.
None of this is going to help the pain that Americans are feeling when they go to the grocery store or when they fill up at the pump or when they try to save for a house or when they pay their rent. All of it is a sham, and it's a way to make sure that the rich get richer.
But of course, Republicans control the House and the Senate. Whether this succeeds or fails will be entirely up to them.
So this is the proposal from House Republicans. Senate Republicans seem to be moving in a different direction. What's happening there, and is that a sign of bigger problems ahead?
Again, something I think we'll get into more in the weeks ahead, but this is all to do with a process called budget reconciliation, which is essentially a way to get around the Senate's 60-vote requirement. Republicans don't have 60 votes in the Senate. They do have 53. So they're using this process as a shortcut. Now, when you do that, it's an elaborate series of steps. Both House and Senate must agree agree on a budget. So Senate Budget Chairman Lindsey Graham thinks the House is taking too long. And so he moved forward today with a separate plan that would only focus on the border portion, that border detention ICE portion of it. And he explained to reporters yesterday why he thought this was necessary.
I heard Tom Holman, pretty tough guy, begging us for money.
I heard from Tom Homan, pretty tough guy.
Begging us for money.
He's just a tough guy begging. Can you imagine that?
Begging.
That's like America's ass begging. That's Captain America right there.
Begging.
I beg you to give me more resources. I heard Russ Vogt, the OMB guy, say, ICE is out of money. All I can tell my House colleagues, whatever you need to do to get the one beautiful bill, do it. Do it now. You have my...
That's such a Trump thing to say. The
Well,
one
that's
big,
exactly
beautiful
what they're
bill.
referencing. That's what they're trying to do. The big beautiful bill.
Big, beautiful bill.
blessing, you have my support. But if we can't do it quickly, we need to go to Plan B.
Tom Homan, the border czar. Now, why is he nervous? Let's look at the House balance of power right now. Republicans barely have a majority there. They really just can't afford too many votes. So he says, let's take something that's an easy win here. We'll see how this works out.
Meanwhile, in the Senate, a win for President Trump. His pick to be the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was confirmed and later sworn in. What should we know about her and the other nominations in process?
Former.
Yeah, so that's obviously from last week, but
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I guess like to be political nerds like for a little bit. So that's what so the Senate right now is debating it. So tomorrow, I guess we'll find out if the Democrats actually had some backbone in this today, because what they can do. So since they're going through reconciliation and they don't, so the filibuster doesn't apply. Basically, the Democrats can put forward as many amendments as they want, and then they have to vote on every single amendment. So it could.
Is that what they're going to do?
That's what they should.
Is
do.
that not what's happening right now?
That's what's happening right now. Yeah. So this could take hours and hours and hours, and it probably will.
What are the chances you think this is getting passed then?
No, it's gonna get passed. It's just gonna take. It's basically if they put forward amendments, it's basically just leverage later for oh well you struck down this amendment, so clearly you don't care about this issue.
Political. It's performative politics.
Sure, but it's all we have.
It's all we got. All right, let's watch this one.
It's making the process take longer, and it's basically making. Back to. This is the Senate, so it's not as much of an issue in the House, but back to thinking forward to the midterms, anywhere who's not fully MAGA, if you can put on the record that these some of these senators voted against a particular issue that's important to the people in their district, then it could be helpful in the future.
Yeah.
But yes, in general, not not hugely powerful, but we're not in a hugely powerful position, obviously.
Yeah. Where should I start this? Right here?
You can go to 5 minutes. Yeah,
Start it right there.
So lastly, Steve,
What's that?
5 minutes in, yeah.
Okay.
you're going to show
Watch
us
this, I gotta
how
make
the
a call real
GOP
quick.
tax cuts favor the rich.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff in the tax part of this, and basically what they want to do. The central part of it is extending the tax cuts that were voted in 2017 that would expire at the end of this year. It was another bit of budget gimmickry. Would expire at the end of this year absent a renewal. But those tax cuts are what we call highly regressive, meaning they favor the wealthy substantially over the less wealthy. So people in the lowest 20% of the economy would get a 0.6% increase in their after-tax wages under this plan, and people all the way up through the 80% below the top would get still 1.4% or less. When you get up here, The top 20%, the top 1%, you see the percent increase they get in their after-tax income. Let's turn that into dollars. If you're down here, you're going to get $1,000. You might get $1,900 if you're close to the top. The top quartile gets $9,000. The top 1% gets an average of $70,000. So these are, again, what we call highly regressive tax cuts. Generally, we like to see them favor people at the bottom, not at the top. These are the opposite. The other challenge they're going to have, which is going to be a little bit fun if the stakes weren't so high, a little bit fun to watch, is that they've got this $4.5 trillion for tax cuts in this budget plan, as I said. Almost all of that will be consumed by extending these individual tax cuts that would otherwise expire. But during the campaign, the president ran around promising all kinds of other tax cuts. No tax on Social Security income, restore the full deduction on state and local taxes, no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, deduct in your taxes the cost of your auto loan. So he made all these promises. The whole thing adds up to about $7.8 trillion. So they're going to have to fit $7.8 trillion of promises into a box that's $4.5 trillion in size. And that's going to be an interesting push-pull between the administration and the Congress as well.
Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Bratner with his charts and sound bites. Thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Joe Delaney. Today we're going to talk about what's the fastest way to get to a 10% body fat and still look and feel okay when you get there. But before we start, let's talk about the device you need to have to measure your progress properly.
So this is the BodyPod by Hume, and it's a smart scale, but more accurate, it's a smarter scale. Of course, it tracks your body weight, but it also measures your body composition to, and I quote, medical grade accuracy of 98%. Now, I haven't compared my reading to one from DEXA or hydrostatic weighing, but I think that's the point. These things aren't accessible. One of the reasons this scale is so accurate is because this handle allows it to get measurements from your upper body as well as lower, whereas most smart scales just use your lower body readings to make an approximation. But we know that people do have different fat distribution patterns, so if you want to be accurate, you need to measure both. The scale comes with a free app where you can see a clear breakdown of your metrics, right down to measurements for each individual limb, torso, subcutaneous and visceral fat. It's really quite detailed. There's BMR, there's heart rate. I did make the mistake of getting on one day after I'd had a double espresso. I was mildly concerned for my own welfare. That's another story. Actually, that's the end of the story. Anyway, you can see all of those changes over time in these nice charts. There are lots of tracked metrics, but aside from weight, I tend to look mostly at body fat percentage and muscle mass because I want to make sure that when I'm losing weight, it's predominantly fat loss, and when I'm gaining weight, it's predominantly muscle gain. Of course, when you're losing weight, you tend to store less glycogen and water, and that can impact how you look visually, sometimes making it look like you're actually losing muscle when you're not. So it's a good reassurance to have the scale and, know that your gains are indeed not abandoning you.
Anyways, the scale is linked in the video description, or you can check it out at myhumehealth.com. They're running a 50% sale right now. So if you're interested, go check it out. That's myhumehealth.com.
Alrighty, we all got to watch a My Hume Health commercial. Okay, so it's not playing something, so that's good. If anybody wants to switch over to all the factors, I can play the next video that we were going to look at, and we can start talking about that. But in general, if anybody has any questions about the tax plans, sorry, not the tax plan, the budget plan, we can talk about that a little bit.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. It's my dad's in India, so it's a day and night difference for him. So I had to take that call real quick.
Oh no, you're good. So I was trying to figure out if I could play like the Keds video and try to do that, but
No, I can do it right now. Okay. Did you talk about everything on the other video?
yeah, I mean, pretty much just that. I mean, it just kind of laid out. It just showed the deficit that would.
What's going on, Rip Haven? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of asked them to explain that the percentages are about the same. I assume they mean that what they are right now, but that is an extension, so I'm not sure if they meant.
And isn't it a permanent one, this one?
Well, I guess not if he's looking to change it in 2026.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right.
I thought
well, that's what we watched first.
No, I think we're right, because the one right now is gonna end. I think the one that's one we have right now, the one that was passed in 2017, is gonna end at the end of this year. The next one that's gonna get passed, will be, I think, a permanent tax cut.
Right, but the extension that's in these bills right now, though, is just literally the exact same thing.
Okay.
Like those Social Security things that we talked, tax cuts and stuff that we talked about aren't going to be in this. What's being talked about right now.
Yeah, our nights are good, man. Okay, all right, you ready with the Keds video?
Yeah.
All right.
The United States, there's probably 3 things that you get wrong. One, you think that poor people are some kind of permanent underclass, people who have always been poor, whose parents were poor,
So
whose children will be poor.
Introduction, I guess, to this. Sorry. So, I mean, through the bill, what we looked at was major cuts to Medicaid, major cuts to things like food stamps. So major cuts to programs that affect, the poor in this country. So we just wanted to play this video to kind of to give some levity to that and kind of give some more information as to what that would actually mean and what it would look like. So you can go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to add a little bit
No, that's fine.
of context.
There's us, the normal functioning members of society and the economy, and then there's the poor people. They're over there, and they're not like us, and they don't contribute to the economy that way we do, and they're different from us. One of the reasons why they're different is 2, they don't work, and 3, they don't have to work because they get enough help from the federal government. And these 3 myths, this permanent other group that doesn't work and gets a lot of help from the government, are part of an overwhelming mythology that has at its heart that the reason why we have poverty in the United States is because of poor people. It is a function of their own personal failing, is a function of their own lack of motivation. Poverty is caused by poor people, and that's it. The reason why I bring this up now is that this mythology is not only grossly inaccurate of how the economy works in the United States and where low-income Americans come from, but it's a pretty dangerous mythology to add to policymaking. In real time right now, the Republicans are trying to pass a $4.5 trillion tax cut. They've said they don't have the money to pay for it, so they're going to put at least $3 trillion of that on a credit card and onto the national debt. But a solid trillion they would like to cut from spending, and they are taking dead aim at food stamps and Medicaid. And their purported reason, as Mike Johnson put very clearly in a press conference, is that the reason why we have to spend money on poor people is because they don't work. And in fact, his direct quote is, work is good for you. You find dignity in work, and the people that aren't doing that, we're going to try and get their attention.
Yeah,
that's the mythology at play. They don't work. I support them through the federal government. They're not like us. And so now we just need to jolt them awake and give them some motivation, and voila, there won't be people in need in America anymore. Let's go through each of these myths. Let's talk.
Sorry, what did you say?
I asked if you wanted to pause it for a second.
Oh, no, I didn't. Hey, you're so quiet. What do you want me to do? I gotta hear it.
I was just like, no, all right, I guess not. Now I lost my train of thought. So
oh my God, it wasn't even that long ago, bro.
So I mean, no, not only is that like hugely offensive, it's like wildly inaccurate. I don't have the
as she'll go in the details later on in the video.
I don't have like the the exact data points on it, but I can say just like from personal experience when I worked in housing, like with people who were experiencing homelessness,
Yeah.
everybody who wasn't disabled was working.
Yeah.
I mean, it's extremely expensive to be homeless. You have like, you don't just think about like you don't have a kitchen where you can like prepare food.
Right.
So you have to get like a lot of convenience items. Nothing that like you can't really grocery shop. You can't take advantage of sales. Like all this stuff kind of compounds. I mean, if you want to like take a shower, like you have to find somewhere. Half time you have to pay for it. Like it's just there's all these like expenses that you wouldn't even think about that just
Yeah.
make life so much more expensive. Like there's like poor people work. It's idiotic to actually sit there and think that that's not the case.
Yeah.
Here,
I
I'll
just
turn myself
like
up.
yeah. Yeah, can you move a little bit closer to the mic, man? Like you're sitting in the corner. You move from one corner to another corner. Like can we
I know, I really
think
can't.
about the people? No,
I'll just bring it closer.
no. There you go. Yeah. No, I think it's just like right
I
like
wonder if I was talking while you
oh,
were
that is so
gone
much
and
better.
just,
Holy
like,
shit.
was
That wow, you were
not-
quiet. That was
Just, like-
wow, you're so much better.
So I just like couldn't be heard at all. No wonder why no one was responding to me.
That's why you literally like whispered it, and then I'm like, she said something. Like, did she say something? Like, what's going on here? I thought you made like a snarky
Oh,
comment
alright,
on.
I guess I don't get to decide when we pause. That's
No,
fine.
we're happy to have you, Rip. No, but like so back when Russ was my advisor and I was an RA, you know, and I don't maybe. You had to have participated in it. You remember that little game we played where you had to like go up and down the hallways, and like each place like they gave you like a certain event. Like you started with some amount of money, right? Like you're earning like a
Oh
yearly,
yeah, like
and then
the
like
poverty simulation.
the poverty simulation, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like it was that has stuck with me for a very, 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 very long time, like and vividly, like because I understood, right? Like okay, like nobody starts off being homeless, like it's things that happen, right? Like
Right.
but people really don't realize like how quickly it happens. Like how
Yeah, you're
very
really just a
fast it
few,
happens.
Like bad luck things.
Yeah.
From,
Like,
from it, like
literally
you know,
bad
I
luck.
mean, anybody
Um,
who like has to work every week to like pay their bills, like you're at risk.
You're very
That-
much at risk.
That just is what it is.
Exactly, and I think people. I think what Keds here is saying, is so true. Like, it's just insane how a lot of people view poverty as this thing that we have brought on to themselves. And I'm not saying that's the blanket way. Yes, there could be could be cases where like you know somebody just doesn't work and then they're just okay with being homeless, and I've seen those videos as well where the
Sure.
guy like literally just like doesn't care, doesn't want to work, and he just like goes from clubs to clubs, hooks up with these women and uses their house to like shower and whatnot, and then just like walks into like a CVS
Sure,
and like just
sure.
puts on deodorant right then and there. I've seen that as well.
I
So
think those cases are fewer
like,
and far in
very,
between
like,
than
very
your
rare.
average case, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Most
you know,
people don't like that's the stress of such a lifestyle.
right, and like you know, you have to have like extreme charisma and like massive games to be like just sleeping
Right,
with
like
random
you
women,
strike
like
out one night.
yeah, and you're just on the street. You know,
nowhere
I
to
think your
sleep.
turnaround rate here is not very high. Like you're not profitable in that business, brother. You know, and there's like this conception of like these people like oh they beg all day long, yet when they hop in their little Benzie and just drive off because they've made so much money. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
which is stupid.
which again, it could be happening. Sure, are there some cases? Yeah, like maybe 1 in a billion, whatever. You know, like one guy in New York is just like caking it, like you know, while the other 1 million homeless people in New York are just like hate that guy. Like you know, he just got it somehow. But I think it's so great. Like I think what she says, her points are so great. Like we need to start viewing homelessness, and I think maybe I said too many nesses there, but you know,
Yeah,
homelessness,
we should just talk about like poverty in general. Like, I mean,
yeah, poverty in general.
it's a moral
It's a
failing.
disease. It's a disease, especially when you're the most powerful nation on the planet. To
Yeah.
have something like that be a thing, it is a disease, and she's gonna make a much more compelling
Like
thing.
a sickness
But
of the system, not of the
yes,
individual. Yeah.
right. It is. It is a sickness of the system, and I think and it's a thing that we need to start viewing it that way instead of like, oh no, it's something people have brought onto themselves, because in a lot of cases that is not the case. I think majority of the cases that's not the case. um, you can't call yourself a first world nation if you can't act like it, if majority of your people don't act like it and don't feel like it.
Right. If there's no
um,
social safety net, then yeah, I mean, everybody is just, like I said, one or two accidents away from
Right.
poverty. And if you're not lucky enough to have familial support or friend support, really, poverty will equal
oh no,
homelessness.
I like we just mentioned, Rip. Yeah, but I would say that's again like possibly 1 in a billion, if not like the chance that the percentages are even smaller than that, right? Like
Right. The
nobody
problem is
choose to live
that
that way.
the problem is that that idea has perpetuated into the idea that that's everyone. I mean,
Right.
and that's not the case. And I think that's because visually, like, a lot more people are now I'm using too many instances. More people are homeless than we can visually see. I mean,
Yes.
you've probably had coworkers, classmates who were experiencing homelessness, and you didn't even know, because
Yeah.
it doesn't always look like tattered rags and living on the streets. That can be the case, especially if you compound it with the the drug problem that we have and the mental health crisis. But those, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that those people are choosing to be homeless. If you have severe schizophrenia and you're paranoid schizophrenia and you're technically choosing to live on the streets because you're refusing help, like, or assistance from like a housing service, is that really you choosing to be homeless, or is that like
You're a victim
we
of your
don't
sickness.
have the system to help you in the way that is effective?
Right.
Like,
Right.
and we just have too much. I would say again, even if we took the people who we think are choosing to be homeless, it's probably even a smaller percentage who we can actually justify, like, yeah, that person, I guess, just likes living this way. I don't know. Like, that's like extremely tiny.
But Rip, okay, so we just need to keep our money here and help us. I think that's the point we're getting to, right? There, you can be an average guy and you can have one instant that, like, that's our point, right? Like, our government doesn't have a lot of these social safety nets. Like, for example, in the VA, majority of the homeless population is veterans, because they've seen some things, they've gone through some things. No. We're kind of agreeing with the same thing. And to your earlier comment too, as advanced as our country is there really no reason to be homeless? No, absolutely. There's a million. That's our point. There's a million reasons that you can be homeless. But again, because our country is advanced, because we call ourselves the most powerful nation on the planet, the most advanced nation on the planet, that those reasons shouldn't make you homeless, right? Like, again, as an example of a vet, right? Like, if you're a vet, and you've served your country should take care of you. Being a vet that has experienced some things, right? Those experiences shouldn't let you, or shouldn't make you be a homeless person or be in poverty at all. Like, you shouldn't need to rely on, um, outside assistance. Your government should have already, or there should be how am I trying to say this? Like, there should be assistance already built into the system where you should never get to that point, right?
Right. If our systems just functioned more appropriately, if we had like even just universal health care or like everybody gets
Exactly.
some sort of like disability coverage, then if you get hurt and you have to take, you know, a couple of months or off of work, that's not a bankruptcy, you know, equaling thing. Or, you know, you get hurt and have to go to the hospital and you get something as simple as like a broken limb. Again, it doesn't have to be a bankruptcy causing event. Like,
Right.
it's just because our systems don't work.
Right. And I have so many friends that are in the Marines right now. One of my best friends, he's got out of the Marines. Every time I've talked to them about something like this, they say it's a complete joke, right? And that is one of our branches of the government that gets the most funding,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't pass an audit. So where's that money going, right? It should be going towards our soldier, our most valuable asset, one of our most valuable assets, right? That's what we're saying. And then that's this person. We're gonna continue playing this clip, and then she's gonna mention she's an economist, very excellent economist. Follow her on TikTok or wherever she is. I think she's on other platforms too. Her name is Keds Economist. Excellent breakdown of what we're actually talking about. Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna play.
You know, work is good for you. You find dignity in work, and the people that aren't doing that, we're going to try and get their attention. That's the mythology at play. They don't work. I support them through the federal government. They're not like us. And so now we just need to jolt them awake and give them some motivation, and voila, there won't be people in need in America anymore.
Right.
Let's go through each of these myths. Let's talk about why they're wrong, and you'll, I think, see that the biggest problem with this massive tax cut, the biggest problem with this mythology is that it leaves the actual cause of poverty and economic insecurity unaddressed. They're risking so much more than just cutting off funds and help to people in need. They're failing once again to solve the actual problems facing so many Americans. And it is so many Americans. Starting with the first myth, poor people are some permanent other group. Categorically wrong. Two studies show why this is clear. The first looked at household income for 48 months and studied how many months household income fell below the poverty line. So if poverty means you don't have enough money, the federal government has operationalized a definition of both what money is, it's cash going into a household from whatever source, and what not enough is. That's called the federal poverty line. So researchers at the Census Bureau looked at 48 months of income and measured how many people fell below the poverty line in any given month. And what they found over a 4-year period is 34% of Americans became poor. Now, they didn't stay poor. Poverty is a transient state, not a permanent one. 34% of the households became poor. The average poverty spell lasted less than a year, and then they got right back up again. Poverty isn't a disease that affects one isolated group of people.
I mean,
it is a
crazy to me
risk
that
that a
that's not
third of
common
Americans
sense
are
to
exposed
some
to at
people,
any given.
like, you know, you get laid off, you lose your transportation, you have an unexpected medical bill. Like, do other people not? I mean, I understand that like people who grow up in wealth don't experience life the same, but it's like that thought doesn't even occur to you. Like, you know that some people out there lose their jobs sometimes. Like,
Right.
you think like just bootstraps immediately you're fine. Like,
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh, well, like
It's just crazy.
and it doesn't even have to be like as severe as something like like a physical harm to you, right? And you can even still have the job. But what if your house floods? Like your roof just cracked. Like natural disasters happen all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like your basement like flooded. Now your HVAC and completely are all gone, and you were living paycheck to paycheck, and now you have to do what are you gonna just live in the like if you're in Connecticut, like and it's freezing outside, it's a -degree temperature in the winter time, right? Like, but you're just gonna constantly just put on like 3 sweatshirts and like just that, like just continue to go that way? No, you know what I mean? Like it's just like those are the little things that
Right, people have to choose between
drastically
getting into,
change.
like, super debt, or just kind. I mean, honestly,
and
I've
medical
seen
debt
some
should never
people
be a thing.
living some crazy, interesting, I should say, conditions. But
Yeah, and like the fact that there is medical debt is evil. Like
it really
that
is.
is that
And
is
you
some
can't
evil
control
shit.
what happens to you, especially like, like from accidents and stuff like that. It's just like, something that can happen to you like in an instant. It's so like scary.
Yeah.
In time. Now, they did see people who were poor all 4 months, what they refer to as chronic poverty, but it was 2% of the population. So when you think of poverty, you're thinking of the 2% that has always been poor, because it's a lot scarier to think of the 34% who will be. Another set of researchers, rather than looking at monthly income, they looked at annual income, and they looked at tax returns to see which percentage of tax returns fell below poverty. And then instead of looking at a 4-year period, they looked at a 10-year period. So I have 10 years worth of income for every American. What percentage of household income falls below poverty in a given year? It's 40%. So if I were to look at every American for 10 years, 40% of them will have a year in poverty. Y'all, that is
like, that's insane. That's insane. 40% of Americans will have at least 1 year where they're poor.
Yeah.
By
I mean, it
and the
doesn't
metric is
surprise
very
me.
low. I think the metric is like $18,000 a year. It was your household income.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
when
we don't know
benefits
the
start to kick in.
exact- Right. It is low. It is around that, I would say. I mean, and that can differ from area to area, state to state.
Yeah. But I think in Connecticut it's $18,000, and I think that's
That
one of the
sounds
more
right.
generous states, right?
Yeah,
So
I
if you're in
wanna
other
say-
states,
I want to say North Carolina for like a single person was probably like 14 something.
exactly. So over the span of 10 years, just think about it. 10 years. 40% of Americans, that's almost 140 million people plus. 140 million people on a span of 10 years, at some times for 1 year, was poor enough that they weren't making enough they were making less than $18,000. Just think about that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know the exact. I mean, I assume that that was the parameter of the study. I mean, it could have been just like something just asking if you make enough to like pay your bills or something like that.
No, I think that's
but
why the government
it
calculates
wasn't,
it.
I wasn't sure if she said that or not.
I'm pretty sure I mean, the federal level might even be lower than Connecticut's, because Connecticut is usually a little bit higher than that because they can't give you.
No, there's poverty levels. Yes, there's calculated
And
poverty
I'm
levels.
pretty sure it's
I
around
wasn't
there.
sure- Yeah.
massive. 30 to 40% of Americans are at risk for poverty. That is poverty in the United States. It's not a state, it's a risk. It's a risk that a lot of people face. Why do so many people face this risk of poverty? 2, this myth that poor people don't work ignores how many people who are working and poor. Americans have a very weakly regulated low-wage labor market that not only doesn't pay that much money, but kind of churns people in and out of jobs because they're very low quality. So you can think of this in a couple ways. The first is like, put in your mind everybody in the US who is working full-time, full year. They have a 4% poverty rate, meaning that even though they're a full-time worker, they have such a low hourly wage that 4% of them are in poverty. Again, you're going to say like, well, that's not that many workers, but it is a big share of the poor. It's a small share of workers. It's a large share of the poor. Now I'm going to look at everyone who's working full year in the United States.
Right. Like I that can be a little confusing, and I had to like listen to that over and over again to really make it understanding. When she says it's a small portion of workers, but a huge portion of the poor, that's the thing that we really should be the beginning of the fix, right? It's a small portion of the poor.
A significant portion of poor people work. It's basically like
Exactly. if your issue is poverty in this nation, and you want to eliminate that group of people, not kill, but like just bring them out of that state, and that only helps the economy overall, because if you bring those people out of poverty, they have more money to spend, right? The way you do it is to offer better wages to those people, because that's the people that continuously go into that poverty range, right? It's because they don't earn enough that they're constantly going back into it, right?
That too.
Right. No, 100%. But how do you do that? How do you lower the cost of living?
Part-time workers, 14% of them are poor. So they're working all year, but they don't have enough hours.
You love a lamp? Well, go fuck one, dog. What the fuck are you telling me for?
Or wages to push themselves above poverty. So workers have their own poverty rates. But then really what pushes most workers into poverty, in addition to low wages and low hours, it's unstable employment. Some of these low wage jobs, they're just really hard to keep. One study on paid sick days illuminates really clearly why this is. So Seattle passed a paid sick leave law saying that you couldn't fire people for calling in sick, and they had to accrue paid sick days. Well, researchers found that it increased the earnings of women by $2,400 a year. And it wasn't because they were taking $2,400 worth of sick days. It was because it was a lot easier for them to maintain a job when they weren't fired for being sick, or when their kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So something like that, I would consider that as lowering the cost of living. Like a policy like that, even though it's not directly like cost of living, something like that is a policy that needs to be had federally.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I saw this. I mean, I've worked in several different programs. I didn't just work with people experiencing homelessness. I worked with people with mental health issues, just kind of across the gamut. And I saw this in every role. I saw this, just people lose their jobs because they had to take, sometimes it could be as little as like 3 days off in a 6-month period because their kids were sick, and
Right.
and nobody could watch them. And again, I mean, in this like cycle of poverty, people like exacerbate their resources. I mean, not everybody's family is the same, so it's kind of hard to think like this, but people like having like a not as supportive family can be a factor that leads into these like poverty type situations.
Yeah.
So these people don't always have a grandma who can watch their kid, or an aunt, or a neighbor. Like, it's just them. So if like something happens with their kid, they're the only one that can take care of it. And I mean, the employment system that we have in this country has no sympathy for that. Just zero. It's actually, it's pretty baffling how often I saw that happen.
Right. Raising minimum wages does the opposite. I would think driving prices down would help. Okay, let's say you're right. I don't agree with that, but let's say you're right. Let me give you a little bit of pushback on it. How would you drive those prices down? But why? Why would it cause? But let's just stay on topics, and then we can talk about the PTO. But how would you drive those prices down? Would you pay workers less? Because that can't be driving a price down. That's not a government can have a huge influence on that, but a government can't tell private corporations like grocery stores. But you can't just say that. Like, you just can't like, oh, I don't know. I just know raising minimum wages doesn't work. No, but like you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't work that way. Like, you can't just be like, oh, driving prices down would help. But you can't.
It's the only power that the government has. It's the only thing that it
I mean, neither are we.
direct influence on.
I'm not an economist, but I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking of this as a logical way. Let's just say like a grocery chain, like Stop and Shop, right? Like, who can tell that grocery store that the apples they're buying, they can't sell it for $1, right? Yeah, but it's not because of minimum wage, and that it wasn't because of that minimum wage
And
that the
if
burgers
I
at
mean,
McDonald's doubled.
Did you look at McDonald's profits? Like, did they stay the same or did they go up?
It raising minimum wage does work. Promise you, there's been multiple studies. States like Washington, Oregon, they've absolutely raised minimum wages and they've seen massive benefits.
No, we've talked about this before. It's a corporate greed thing. When wages are raised, we talked about this before. You open up a greater customer base. More people can afford your product or to use your service, whatever it is. So if companies have the opportunity, even though they have to pay their workers more, to still maintain the same amount or greater, just from a higher customer base, profit. If they choose to raise their prices, that's just corporate greed. They're using that as an excuse to raise their prices. And then if you watch their profits, you would see they probably went up. Whereas if it was just in response to minimum wage, they should stay the same. Should they not? I mean, again, not an economist, but that's just my argument.
No, exactly. But a company isn't going to take a loss to pay people more.
I just explained that they're not taking a loss.
Right. They're not taking a loss. We can look it up.
Did they
Let's
just
look it up.
have to increase their? I mean, we haven't had a minimum wage increase in years, so no. I mean, if they are, it's because people just aren't going there because of their shitty practices. It's not because of the wages that they have to pay.
Where can we look it up? That's reputable that you might like. Center for Economic and Policy Research. That sounds about good, right? NPR's posted this. McDonald's, and this is July 29th, 2024. McDonald's profits are up 31% since the pandemic. It's a victim of inflation. Incredibly, the piece never once mentioned the company's profit. They went from 11.18 billion in the year ending in 2019 before the pandemic to 14.69 billion in the year ending in March. We're talking about profit. This is a profit. Like, this astronomical number is a profit.
Right. We're not talking about like
$14 billion in profit. An increase of more than 31%. That compares to an overall inflation rate of 21% over this period. I mean, like, if your company's profit, but that exactly, right? If a company profits $14 billion and it doesn't pay their employees a like bare minimum wage, you not see the problem? You think, how many employees does McDonald's have? How many employees does McDonald's? Maybe a million over the whole United States. Let's not do global. Let's say a million. That's a lot of people, right? Maybe 2 million. But but it's the same problem, even if you're seeing it completely different, right? If it's a million people and McDonald's goes like, okay, well, we're gonna give you a $2 raise. $2 raise. That's $2 million. Literally $2 million per hour.
Out of their $14 billion profit.
Per hour. They can survive. I think the corporation will be okay. I think it just corporate greed. Like it literally is just the corporate greed. I just don't think the government should control what companies do unless it's illegal. Again, but when you say, okay, let's go back to your earlier comment, right, where you said, where was it? Raising the minimum doesn't help. I think driving down prices would. How? You can't, if a government can't tell private companies like grocery stores and other entities that consumers regularly use, you know, like that the customers regularly use, that you can't lower your price because the customers have to buy it. How will those companies lower it? They won't, because they want their profits, as you said, right? They're not gonna. They don't want loss. They don't want a profit loss. So how will they do it?
Yeah, I mean,
government can control only one thing. Government can control only one thing, right? Like let me just get this point out. Like the government can only control one thing is, hey, you only have to you have to pay these people enough. That is it. That is it. That's the only thing a government can do. Pass legislation where they say, hey, nobody should work below this. And that works. It really does work. And I'll give you a perfect example. In Connecticut, there's this thing called a min bottle protection, right? As a mom and pop liquor store, there's a bottle, you buy a bottle for $1, and then the state of Connecticut says you can't sell it for anything less than $1.25. That means you as a customer can go to your mom and pop liquor store, get the same bottle for the same price, or you can go to Total Wine and get that for the same price. But here's where Total Wine's really fucking evil, and this is what they do. They eat up the fine, but they'll sell that for $1.10 because they want the customer. It's completely illegal to do, but they do it because they'll just eat up the fine at the end of the year because they're a global corporation. I can't do that as a mom and pop store, right? But it makes the competition fair and it benefits the consumer. So if the government can implement policies like that, but you think that's illegal, or do the other way, right? If everybody in my area makes the same amount of money for the below, like, hey, you can't go below this. You tell the companies you can't go below this amount, then people can afford things, right? You set a limit to where people can't fall below poverty line now. That people can't become poor now, right? It's the same concept. It's the same concept. All right, what were we gonna say? I'm sorry. I gotta go pee real quick. Why don't you talk?
Okay. I like that the point that you make, like, you don't buy it is one way. I think that that speaks to the power of the consumer. And I do think that's valid. I mean, the government isn't the only thing that can affect change. I think in in the markets. I mean, if we don't approve of a particular company's business practice, how much they charge being an example of that, then yeah, we don't have to engage in buying that product. I mean, that's not entirely true. I mean, we've seen significant amounts of boycotts for different reasons recently. And I mean, they've had interesting effects. I mean, and it also for you personally. I mean, choosing to shop at mom and pop stores rather than big corporate stores. I mean, I try to do that too.
Right. No, the customers have more power. Absolutely. But we're talking about people that are in poverty, right? Now, if the mom and pop store has to
bring it back to the topic,
the mom and pop store has to make money. Can we agree on that? So if they're selling an item for $1.50, but you only have $1.25 because you're poor, because your job didn't pay you enough, and that's all you have left, and the big corporation stores like Walmart, Total Wine, Target, or whatever, they're selling it for $1.10, you're gonna go over there because they can't afford to, because they're such a big corporation. They get the benefits of buying in bulk. They have their own distribution. No, absolutely. But again, it's I've seen this personally, right? Let me give you an example too. If your budget for the whole week is $500, right? And you can live comfortably on $500, but at the end of the week you're only walking away with $10-20 left over, but you've paid all your bills, you have groceries at home, or whatever. Now I increase that, you get a pay raise. Now you make $600 at the end of the week. Now you keep everything the same, right? But now you have an extra $100.
That allows you more consumer choice. I mean, back to
Exactly.
the point. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, we've talked about before being forced to shop at Walmart because it's the only place you can afford. It's the place you can stretch your food stamps farthest.
Right.
Yes, with that extra amount of money, you can go become a customer of your local grocer instead, which increases
It's
the
an
local
example.
grocer's profits. I mean,
It's an example. If I give you $600, now you have that extra money. Now you have that extra money. Now you can go maybe now you can take your family out to some pizza night at your local restaurant, right? Now not only have you benefited from getting more money in your pocket, but you've actually contributed to that economy by helping a mom and pop store and your neighbor, right? That's just, and you imagine that for the lower income. We're talking about people that are in poverty right here. We're not talking about people that are making $500, $1 million a year. No. We're talking about people that are making $14,000 a year, right? And you have to stretch that $14,000 a year. And a lot of the people on food stamps, you can look this number up, we're not making it up, like a lot of people on food stamps only get about $3,000 a year for food. Now you're talking about $500 a lot a week, but try stretching $3,000 for 365 days for food.
right.
It's hard. And the only way you qualify for food stamps and Medicare and other benefits is if you're making less than $18,000 a year. How can you afford rent? How can you afford this? While these corporations with insane amount of tax cuts that we've talked about earlier in the episode are benefiting in the hundreds and the hundreds of the billions. As you can see, McDonald's profit jumped 31%. Listen, I'm not saying don't make your money. This is America. We live in a capitalist system, and I'm a fan of capitalism. But I think there's a massive difference, right? Like where you just have too much. Now imagine if just that fine, McDonald's made $11 million a year. They're a big corporation. They're worldwide. People go there regularly. If they just made 12 million, 13 million the next year instead of 14, and then they gifted some of that to their own worker base, if they kept their own workers happy, I would feel better about supporting McDonald's, even though it will fucking probably kill me soon. But like, I would feel better about supporting McDonald's because they're taking care of their workers. They're taking care of their people. This is the people working at McDonald's are making them billions of dollars, right? It's not the CEO working at all these millions of locations at the same time. Not saying he's not working hard, but do you think he's working equally as hard as those million people that are working for him? I just don't know. I just don't know if that's true. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying is giving people more money. I've seen that firsthand. Giving people more money gives the customer better choice, more choices, and healthier choices, right? If you can only shop at McDonald's and you can't go to Whole Foods to buy better, healthier food, or can't go to your local butcher to buy fresher meat, you're gonna get health problems, but you have no choice because you're only earning $18,000 a year.
Right. I mean, that's why I think it's pessimistic, kind of, to say that that customers have no choice and no effect on the market. I mean, the choices that we make every day as consumers affect the market, and I mean, continuing to choose subpar quality and shitty worker practices, you know, if you're not at the point where you absolutely, that's all you can afford, that has an effect on the economy. I mean, I don't know, that's your choice, but that's not really what we're talking about.
But my thing is, I do see it. I see the solution to, I see the solution to this problem, right?
Now we're getting revolutionary, like unite the people, boycott the system.
Get revolution. The revolution will be televised. I will televise it. No, all I'm saying is I see the solution. Corporations, they have one thing in their mind. It's money, right? I believe in a capitalistic system. I think it's one of the systems that works really, really well. I believe in a bigger government and having a more powerful government to hold these people accountable, right? Lena Khan was just from the past administration, she was amazing. Just look at some of her work. You don't have to take my word for any of this, right?
U.S. consumers like 21 billion or something like that.
Right. So she was amazing. The Bureau of Protection is excellent and amazing bureau that actually saves people money. She
one of my
has another
senators
video.
is doing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Making it just basically.
But that's Congress, Rip. That's Congress that has to do
making
it.
junk fees legal. Like that's what Tim Scott is spending his time on, bringing back junk fees.
Yeah, see, that's ridiculous. Like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?
He says that they have the right, and we're taking
like,
away
that's
corporate, choice or whatever. I don't know.
Like,
it's crazy. I don't understand how you can support it, but
I'm a private business owner, and I should be allowed to compete in the market, but I should be allowed to compete on a playing field that's even, that's fair, right? But who does that? The government's job is to do that. There should be a bigger government that makes sure, not bigger government where they're reaching into your lives and stuff like that. No, to making sure that the playing field is even, right? That it's all fair. We have to play this little balancing act, right? Like it's not a fantasy to make that happen. Right now, we have so much money from these giant corporations going into our government, not just for Republicans, for the Democrats are just as guilty as of it too, and we are equally as critical of the Democrats as we are of the Republicans. So I fucking hate the Democrats. I'll say it. I think they're so useless. But that's the government job. Making government smaller will not help. It'll only give companies like Amazon, Total Wine, Facebook, Meta, fucking whatever you want to pick fucking one out of the lottery. Like, just toss it right out of there. Walmart, you know what I mean? It will only make them stronger because they can buy these people. One thing we need to do to fix all of this, I guarantee you, the solution to this, I'll give you the solution, right? Corporations cannot donate to political. They cannot have political PACs and political fund. Get rid of People's United. Number two thing that Congress needs to do is Congress from each state needs to be paid the same as their lowest paid worker.
That's radical.
Literally, if somebody in Connecticut is making $7, $5 an hour, the congressman, whether it's a senator or is it a representative, they need to be making $5 an hour. I guarantee you, within 24/7, within 24 hours, you will have all these fucking Congress people begging for it, begging for hourly increases. 3, get lobbyists out. The Congress people should only listen to the people, not to corporations, right? And I'm gonna quote Warren Buffett here: if the deficit if the deficit is ever negative and it falls below negative, then you have immediate special elections and you re-elect every single congressperson immediately. If you can't balance these things, if you do just these 4 things, I swear to God, you will have the greatest nation on the planet. You will. All right, let's keep watching Keds real quick. Let's finish our video.
Kid was sick. It also reduced
go
their
back a little bit
poverty
just so we
rates.
can-
Poverty is the function of increase the earnings of women by $2,400 a year. And it wasn't because they were taking $2,400 worth of sick days. It was because it was a lot easier for them to maintain a job when they weren't fired for being sick or when their kid was sick. It also reduced their poverty rates. Poverty is a function of low wage, unstable employment and earnings, and we have a lot of that in the United States. That's why up to 40% of Americans can fall into poverty at a given time. Now, there are lots of poor people who don't work, but they tend to have one of 2 characteristics. 1, they're disabled, or 2, they're caregiving for children. If the labor market were more amenable to either of those populations, we would probably have a lot fewer people in poverty. But unfortunately, the US is very severe in that it doesn't like to make space for parents in the workplace, and it doesn't like to make space for disabled people. And if you don't believe me, you should know that disabled employment rates peaked during the pandemic and the years afterwards when they were allowed to work from home, and they'll fall again. Now, the third myth, probably the biggest misconception, is that most poor people are like rolling in funds and resources from the federal government. Be clear here that the poorest group of Americans are children. They have the highest poverty rates, and a lot of support programs go to them. Elderly people get Social Security. They're not that poor. So if I'm thinking of working age adults in the United States, there's about 20 million who are poor at any given time. 500,000 people get welfare, and 4 million people get disability from SSI. So that means 15.5 million of this 20, or 3/4, get no cash from the government. None. Now you might say like, oh, well, they get housing and they get childcare and they get all this other stuff. Okay, again, 20 million adults in the United States who are poor.
Extremely limited.
About 4 million people will get housing assistance, and fewer than 1 million will get childcare assistance. Another 15 million who don't get either of those things. The only 2 things that most poor people get, even if they're adults, is food stamps and Medicaid. They are the most generous programs in terms of coverage. They don't give you any cash. You can't buy diapers with food stamps or Medicaid. You can't pay for rent with food stamps or Medicaid, but you can get you can get food and health insurance. Now you might seem like, well, then you're all set. I don't know about that. I mean, food stamps, the average benefit is under $3,000 a year. It's not that much money, not enough to live on. I don't know if you could actually feed yourself on $3,000 a year. But,
as I've said,
this is the reality, right? And that's what makes these types of tax cuts built off of benefit cuts so dangerous, because it doesn't address the problem. It doesn't address where poverty comes from, and it doesn't address the multitude of market failures that low-income Americans have to deal with. The low-wage labor market, the housing market, the childcare market, the healthcare market, all of these are left unaddressed. You can kick people to the curb and say it's your fault for having a hard time, but you don't fix the problem. And by giving away $4.5 trillion in taxes, you make the problem that much harder to solve.
Can we go back real quick to this beautiful? There it is. There it is. There's the chart. So Medicare and what was it, SNAP, getting a cut of $880 billion, as well as agriculture for $230 billion. So we're taking away SNAP and Medicare.
Right.
And we're giving ways, means of tax cut of $4.5 trillion. Trillion dollars. I just don't know if the fucking math adds up in my head. I just don't.
No, it doesn't. And I mean,
taking away $10 billion from small businesses.
Yeah, nice. Thanks.
Just like what? Like what?
Don't worry, though. ICE is getting funded because they're begging. They're on their knees.
Tom Homan, what a tough guy.
On his knees.
He needs the money to round up working class people, sure. I just don't know. Man. I just don't know.
I mean, we just showed that,
to-
I think, to show just like the necessity of those programs and how silly it is to think that like just putting a
If we
work
start viewing,
requirement-
yeah, I
like-
think we just need to view poverty and being poor and being homelessness not as something you do to yourself, but as a disease that needs to be eradicated. The thinking has to change there, right? We need to fund things in a way that will eliminate that.
Sorry, just out of curiosity, I looked up like what the SNAP spending was, and it looks
Yep.
like in 2023 it was 112 billion. So
112 billion. 112 billion.
And I mean, that doesn't even cover like, I mean, she mentioned that like, or you mentioned maybe like that the average person gets like $3,000 a year in food stamps. I looked up how much the average person spends in groceries a year, and it's over $6,000 like per
Right.
person. So
Exactly.
It's
It's nothing.
yeah.
It's nothing. I think most American people want to work.
I think so too. I think if you take the statement that there's dignity in work and all that the senator that she mentioned said, I don't think it's a wrong
Mike
sentiment.
Johnson. Mike Johnson.
Oh, was he the one that said it?
He's the one that said it.
Oh my God, that guy.
Speaker of the House, the third most powerful man in America, guys.
Nice. And
Love
he's
that.
that ignorant, yeah. But yeah, I mean, most of these people are working, and all you're gonna do is make things harder for them, and you're not going to supplement with anything that's gonna benefit. So
You know what I think? I thought I was when I drive, I have a lot of I like to think a lot, which is probably not good because I'm driving. I should be paying attention to that. But I usually don't go I don't go anywhere new, so usually it's very like routine for me. But I was thinking about this concept of American Dream, right? Like why have so many people lately been screaming, "Oh, the American dream is dead"? Like, what does that mean? What do you think why have people been saying the American dream is dead?
I mean, I think that just means it's not achievable.
Right.
I don't know if we could look into if it ever like really was, but I mean, we don't have the system that we have right now. If you look at the American dream as house, picket fence, so you have like a nice backyard or whatever, you have 2 kids, your family can survive off of one income. It's just not.
Is that your
anymore. I think that's the stereotypical like
stereotypical
view
one?
of it.
Okay. I think I see it as, I'm trying to say this in a way where it makes what it's in my head sense, right? I see it as a balancing act. Maybe it's because my background and how I view it. But I see it as a balancing thing. There's always that risk of losing something, right? I see it as like, how well can I survive in this place? How well can my day-to-day living be compared to those risks, right? I think that's my American dream. Like, I wanna be able to do things. This is how I should preface this maybe. I don't have concept of money in my head. It's very hard for me to say, oh, that's a lot of money, right? Like, I understand that $1 billion or $1 million is a lot of money, but I don't get excited about that. Like, money kind of has like no value in my social perception, right? Like, it just doesn't. Like, I don't see money like, oh, like, I just want money. Like, like I see, like, I'm greedy for money. Like, it like, I physically can't do that. Like, when I'm reading like, oh, $1 trillion, $1 billion, or whatever, I'm just like, okay, it's a number, right? Like, I understand that it's a big fucking number, but I don't go like, oh, way, like it's a big number. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work like that in my head. So what works in my head is like, well, I should be able to go to work and be able to afford whatever I need to have a comfortable living, right? Like that's as far as my thinking goes. Yeah, like having more of it obviously means I can afford more stuff that I want, but for me, like there's probably like a point where like if I'm earning the X amount of money and I don't my life's very simple to begin with, right? And that's because I don't have any kids right now, and like it's just me and my wife, like you know what I mean, and I want to care for my parents, so I don't have like the desire to like go spend money, like go buy things for my kid, you know what I mean? Like my expenses are generally like very low, but I just want to be able to go to work, and that's I think that's the American dream, and I think that's why a lot of people say the American dream is dead, is because they go to work and they still can't do the basic things that they want to do with their families, right? I think that's true for a lot more than 40% of the people that Keds was talking about. I think it's for a lot more than that. And but they see this explosion of wealth for others, the very selected few, and when they hear numbers, oh, this person is worth this $400 billion or this person is worth $100 billion, it's hard to conceptualize that number. So people like don't get, I feel like people get angry about it, but it's like, but it's almost like, it's like self-defeating. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I just like, there's nothing I can do about it now. Like it's just that bad. Right. And again, and this is why I kind of keep harping back on the point, like, this is where the government needs to be more stronger and really look out for the American people, right? And when I see that our government wants to pass a package like this, I think when people see that, what the consequences of this will be, I think it'll be more people that will go like, no, the American dream is truly dead. And this is, I think, where you really lose. I was listening to this one person. Can I go on a little bit of a rant? I know it's kind of getting late. I'm sorry. We've been going on for a while. The greatest asset of the Roman Empire was the fact that they had a strong populace. Right? They got attacked by Carthage for 80 years, and Carthage absolutely ran their shit, dog walked them across the entire continent of Africa and Europe. However, every time Carthage defeated Rome, they would just go back and raise a bigger army. Get defeated, go back and raise a different army. You know what I mean? And then they just kept coming back because their populace was so strong. And that's how they defeated Carthage. Not that they were better at anything. Carthage was, by all metrics, just better than them. They had better general, better tactics, better everything, better armies. But Carthage was spread too thin across, and it was hiring mercenaries. You know, and that's how it lost. I think America is on this decline because its populace is on the decline. I think the government really needs to get a hold, and I think the next 4 years is going to have to be really crucial. If the American people don't become stronger, and I don't just mean, like, when we say the American people, I don't just mean white Americans or whatever, or people, like, you know what I mean? I think America as general needs to become stronger in a sense where it needs to use all its tactic and strategies to cultivate the best of the best, whether it's H-1B visas to get smarter people here, increasing its education funding to make its people smarter, because you are losing the battle with every other country, developed country, including China and India, in terms of like how smart your people are. Right? For every PhD graduating in America, China is pumping out 1,000 or 100. Sorry, it's 1 to 100. Right? You can't compete with that. So the only way you'll be able to compete with that is if you import smart people here, because you have the influence while you still have it. While you still have the influence and this prestige of being a first world nation and being the United States and being the most powerful nation on the planet, use that to attract smart people to really innovate your population, really make things here. Infrastructure, it needs to be a massive thing. The United States needs to do a complete overhaul, not build for today, build for the next 400 years. Our roads needs to be top notch. Our bridges needs to be top notch. Our infrastructure, period, needs to be top notch. We need to be doing that. Like, and it needs to be an across the nation. The only job for the government, it's not a for-profit. Government doesn't look at profit. I'll keep saying this over and over again so people really recognize a government shouldn't be making a profit. The government should just be focused on creating jobs and security, and that is it. If private corporations are fucking being scummy, you act like the most powerful nation on the planet and you fuck them up and you do it yourself. Like FDR did by building all the fucking highways, make it a national security issue. Your roads needs to be better. Your highways need to be better. Your airplanes need to be better. You think the government can't just walk into the fucking Boeing boardroom and be like, hey, stop fucking around, build better planes? Certainly do that. Now, if Boeing doesn't do it, you can punish them for it. Yeah. But the government doesn't need to be looking out for corporations. It needs to be looking out for its people. If it helps the people, then you just do it. If it helps the majority of the company, you just do it. That's what I think. If that's radical, if that's revolutionary, I don't care. That's my belief.
No, I agree.
People shouldn't be struggling.
I absolutely agree 100%. And it's frustrating to see them do pretty much the exact opposite of what their populace needs. I mean.
Yeah. I think we'll end it there. I'm starving. Guys, thank you so much. I thank you for coming in. We love having these conversations because I think this is something that needs to happen more often. I think people with different ideas do need to have it. We certainly believe anything. We certainly believe some things, and we'll let you know. Rip, thank you for the follow, man. Thank you so much. If you could please, eventually I won't be doing this on my channel. Sure, bud.
All right.
Okay. Good for you, bro. Idealistic, but live in reality. Okay. Well, reality is dog shit. I don't want to keep living in it. I want to live in a better reality. You're more than welcome to leave in your dog shit reality.
We can give into the pessimism and just keep letting people.
I think he's just trying to be like. I mean, just look at his name. He's a troll.
I get that, but there are people that do think like that, and it goes into the same mentality of like, oh, why bother paying attention? Because they're all just going to do what they want in politics, and then suddenly life's just completely shitty, and you did nothing about it. So
all right, I mean, if you want to keel over and and do nothing,
just
that's
laying down and take it.
That's totally up to you, man. That is 100% up to you.
Yeah, I guess that person's a troll, but whatever.
Yeah. I don't care. Free view. That's the way I see it. But eventually, I won't be doing this on my channel. We're gonna slowly start to transition into our other channel where we're gonna be discussing all this all the time. So it's all the factors. If you in the future, please follow that one. That's where we'll be. It's a little wonky for us right now. We're still trying to work it out. We're still new. We're still a little noob to this. But we'll only be on all the factors. It won't be on my personal channel. I'm a gamer. I game a lot, but eventually we'll be on all the factors. So please.
That way it won't be confusing because all the factors will just be politics. So you won't join and be like, what is this game?
Yeah.
What am I watching?
Because I mainly play games on my channel. So as Annette said, it'll be two separate things. So if you don't mind, please do follow us there. I appreciate it. I would appreciate that. Thank you guys for joining. You guys have a great night. And you know what? You can troll me anytime. I'm going to still continue to fight for you to have a better life. I'm going to still continue to advocate for you to have a better life. I want...
Wouldn't be the first time we've engaged
people of the world. I want people of the world to have a good life. There should be no wars. We don't need to be fighting anything. We're all humans. We can all just get along. It doesn't
It's
really
just
have
peace
to.
and love,
You don't have to have a
man.
penis
Why is it
measuring
that
contest.
one?
We never have to have that. I don't want to have that. I'm good with what I got. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm financially stable. I have good income. I'm just looking out for the people that don't. Simple as that, buddy. If that makes me an idealistic BS, it is what it is. It is what it is. Thank you guys. You have a great night. Hope to see you again.
All right,
Take it
thanks,
easy.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Stop. All right, let's stop.
Okay. Perfect.
It's probably gonna